builders, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about ribs. And I don't mean the smoky kind. Nope, I mean these kinds of ribs. No, not good. So we're going to talk about 4 things today. Preparation to install ribs into the horizontal stabilizer, mixing the Hysol epoxy, using cyanoacrylate super glue, can't say that word, and of course installing the ribs themselves. So just to compare and contrast, I have 2 ribs here, and I talked about this earlier in the week in another video, but as you can see, the rib that's on the bottom here is actually a rib that's going to be installed into the horizontal stabilizer. Its location is roughly 3/4 of the way outboard of the horizontal stabilizer. And just for comparison, here's my hand, and this is how big it is. So it's not too big, but we've got bigger ones in the horizontal stabilizer and smaller ones as the horizontal stabilizer tapers to the wing, to the wing's tip, or the stabilizer's tip. The larger rib is from the wing itself, and these ribs pretty much stay consistent in length all the way through the length or the width of the wing itself. They don't taper. The wing does not taper. But as you can see, this horizontal stabilizer, this rib, is a little beefier than the smaller one here. This has a cap strip that's on top, and that's also distribute the load of the fabric when that's placed on top. You can see this arcing shape here, and there's 2 spars, and this is a little different. Most wing spars are typically like an I-beam, but this wing is more constructed like a kind of an ultralight, where they have tubular spars. So there's a tubular spar that goes here, and if we come back here, there's another tubular spar that goes right here. This rib will be slid over these spars and then glued in place with Hysol. And again, there's another cap strip on the bottom. And again, that's to distribute the load of the fabric. If you have too sharp of a turn, too sharp of an angle, potential to cut through the fabric is there. So that's why you have a little bit more distance. Also in the previous video, I did talk about the camber. Here's the camber, upper camber of the rib. Again, this is a side cross section, a cross section of the wing. And then, like I said, also a flat bottom. Unlike the horizontal stabilizer, which is laminar, equal on both sides. The bottom of the wing presents a high pressure on bottom. Air pushes up and then comes down to the shape of the wing. That's not where most of the lift is created, though. Most of the lift is created when the air is split off and goes up and above and around and then back down. The 2 air masses split off here, and then they join back at the aft part of the wing. Low pressure on top. So essentially this wing is sucked up into the air. What I mean by that is when it starts going fast enough, the air sucks the wing up like that. Low pressure on top, high pressure on bottom. Cancel. Okay, in this part of the episode, we are going to talk about super glues and the different components of those. This super glue, as other ones is called cyanoacrylate. I have a very difficult time trying to pronounce that, so sometimes I'll refer to it as CA, or it can be called super glue. Now, the application in the Kitfox is not necessarily for permanent bonding. This is just to hold things together while you back it up with the Hysol epoxy. I've been using it already and it's fantastic, works great, but there's a process that you want to follow to make sure it does exactly what you want to do want it to do. So like I said here, the first one, this is the one I've been mainly using, and you can see it says thick. There are different viscosities, and the two that I got were thick, and this other one here is called medium. And what that means is the actual thickness of the glue itself. This thick is basically like a gel almost. It's very slow moving and it's easy to work with. I may not even go to that medium, but I got both of them just in case. The thin, I've used thin before with model aircraft, and thin is crazy. It seeps into every crevice that you can possibly think of. If you have balsa wood, it just absorbs and goes into the cracks and crevices. It's great for certain applications. In this application, I didn't see a use for it, so I'm not using it. The other thing you have to be careful about with thin CA is that you won't even know it, but your fingers will get glued to something rather quickly. So if you're using a lot of it, you may feel some heat, and you just have to be careful. But to be honest, thick has been working great for me in this scenario. Now, over here, what I have, this is called Accelerator. This particular kind here, Instaset, it's just another brand. If you go online, you can find different versions of it and stuff, but it's all the same. And what it does is when you hit it to the CA, it will instantly cure the CA. Good and bad things about that. Sometimes it comes in different forms, such as a pump spray or an aerosol spray, and I would definitely not recommend using those two. The spray just gets everywhere, it aerates, and anytime you open up this bottle, it could be going into the neck there and causing the glue to cure inside. With that said, it's also a good idea, anytime you open this bottle, make sure your caps are on secure. The vapors and the fumes with the accelerator, they start moving pretty quickly, and if you do leave this cap off, with that cap off over time, this channel in here will start to seize up from the glue. And this is what it looks like right here, if we can get it to focus. So that little channel in there will start to cure and clog it up. And in a lot of cases, I've seen it where the CA inside the bottle actually starts to gel up, and in some cases I've had the whole thing just seize up completely. It doesn't happen immediately, but over time. So if you're just trying to save, the quantity inside, just make sure you close that cap before you open this cap. Now, to use the Instacure or the accelerator, I use a Q-tip. It works great. You take the cap off, you dip it in there, and when you apply it, let's say this stiffener here, I put the CA glue and it's just sitting there and it's slowly curing. You take the Q-tip with the accelerator and you just go zip, zip, zip like that, and immediately it will lock it in place. That's all you have to do. Doesn't take much, just a little bit. So, also these packages from the internet come with a lot of extras. Basically, you can see this for very fine, I don't know if we can get it to focus, but for a very fine application. Look at that, crazy, huh? And then here's another package, some more of those little tubes. This is, I think, another cap right here. But you know, CA works great. It's good for the application here and building the airplane, helping to build the airplane and stuff. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend practicing a little bit, because it does take a little getting used to. Practice using the CA, gluing things, and using the accelerator to completely cure it. So that's all I got now. On to the next. There'll be a few things we'll need to prep the wood parts as well as the powder coated metal parts. For both, we're gonna need a clean, lint-free rag. I got these at Lowe's, I believe. They claim to be lint-free, but they do put off a little bit of weird stuff. It's good enough. I just make sure I wipe it down until all the particles are gone. Denatured alcohol is what I use to wipe everything down with. The manual does say we can use MEK, but in light of MEK's wonderful carcinogenic properties, I chose to go with the safer bet. Plus the fumes on MEK are pretty outrageous. Next, some masking tape. As you can see here, I didn't use any masking tape. And when you use the popsicle stick to spread the Hysol, it kind of smears everything. It gets a good bead in there, good enough, but it leaves a mess behind. I try to go back and wipe again with the rag and the denatured alcohol, but it's not as great. Let me show you what I've done before when I mask off the pieces. They come out beautifully. So, you know, sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. But that was a pretty easy straight shot with the two parts. When it comes to doing Hysol on the powder coated parts, trying to get masking tape, I just thought that it'd be too futile, and I chose not to mask those off. So again, with the wood, we're gonna prep them, wood parts, differently than the powder coated parts. With the wood, we're gonna use 220 sandpaper, and I cut it off in strips like this. And you would think that you're gonna you're gonna Hysol this end here, this curved end, which in reality, that's not the case. You're actually just Hysoling the edge here. Like in this piece, the Hysol is not on the edge opposite to this strengthener. It's just on the corners, the corner of the strengthener and the corner of the rib. That's all it needs, both sides. So the areas that you want to scuff up with the 220 are the sides of where you're gonna put the Hysol, not the end points. So anytime you think where you're gonna put the Hysol, you wanna always just scuff up the area of the rib. As far as the powder coated parts, you use the maroon Scotch-Brite. You can buy this off of Amazon as well. And you can get a big old box for next to nothing, and then you can cut it in strips. It comes in big, huge pads. So you take this and you just rub it in the area that you're going to attach. So this piece here goes like this against this this former piece. And so I know the Hysol is gonna be somewhere in this area, and you just rub it back and forth like this. It's also gonna be Hysoled in this area too, so I'm just gonna take this and kind of rub it down the line. Now, the book does say what you wanna do is you want to denature alcohol the parts first, get any kind of particles that may cut into the powder coating and potentially into the metal underneath. And then you're going to sand it with the Scotch-Brite, and then you're going to come back and denature alcohol, get all those dust particles off again. And that just helps to make sure that when you do attach the rib, that it's going to adhere to the stabilizer and not be weakened by the dust and stuff. Okay, one other tool that I have found very critical in this project is something I used way back in the day when I built remote control airplanes, and that is a Dremel. Now, Dremels come in so many varieties these days, very inexpensive to, you know, a good amount of money. My recommendation, if you can, spend the money and buy one of these attachments. It's a flexible line that goes to a pin, basically, and allows you to hold the Dremel like this. And you can do some really fine, very specific work without getting too crazy. Detailed work, I should say. If you have just this and you're using this attachment on the Dremel, it gets a little cumbersome because it's heavy and it's a little hard to manipulate and stuff. But that flexible cable allows you to get into something a little lighter and allows you to maneuver it easier. So the key here, and after the fact for me, I was sanding whatever I could to make these ribs fit. The ribs don't fit perfectly, so they recommend sanding the ends. Well, I did. I sanded both ends and got some variability in how far the tips hang over. My recommendation is only sand the back end. I got that from some of the other YouTubers who are building airplanes, and completely agree. Only sand the back end. You're gonna have to sand the back end to fit around some of the weldments. And I'll give you an example of that. So right there, you can see how the weld is lumpy. Well, that rib fits right around there, and it's not gonna get over that unless you sand it down. So keep that in mind when you're prepping these. Sand the back end only, and that'll keep the front end consistent with the leading edge. That may make a prettier view when the fabric is covered. It may be more consistent down the line instead of maybe one back a little bit or so. So something to think about. All right, so the key is get a Dremel. It'll help you out. Getting any debris off the area that you are going to scuff up. And you'll see, oh shoot, lost my line there. Just be careful, because I about erased my pencil mark there. Same over here, be careful with your mark. With my marks, I use a square to make sure that the rib is going to be parallel. And then as I'm CAing it to the frame, I'm using a level to make sure that it's level vertically. I have used the level horizontally, and it is in a horizontal level plane. Okay, next is to scuff it up. So again, here we go with this Scotch-Brite pad. And I just wrap it around like this and kind of saw at it. And you can see it's scuffed. That's exactly what we want. Same over here. I'll zoom in on that just so you can see the difference. Where is it? There it is. You see the scuff? I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter. I probably won't. Yeah, it won't. But you can see where it's scuffed up. That's what I'm trying to go for throughout this whole thing. And I'll show you what I do here. Same thing. So this one I can use a little bit more leeway. And it doesn't take much. You don't want to go down to the metal. Just trying to give it something to fill a gap, to fill a little bit of a rough area that it can attach to. If it's smooth, it's not going to do as good of a job. Okay, so again, powder coating. What are we doing? We are cleaning the surface. It's a 3-step process. Powder coat, clean the surface, denature to alcohol, roughen the surface up, Scotch-Brite, and then clean the surface again, denatured alcohol, and a lint-free rag. There we go. Try not to erase your lines with the denatured alcohol, because pencil or Sharpie, it'll just disappear. So there you go. Just going to show you, you can see a little bit of the dirt. Well, maybe not. Let's see if we can get in this. It's a little dirty, but look, these little guys here is what you got to be concerned about. All right. Okay, here we go. Check to make sure that it's not clogged with the CA. Just gonna CA this piece in right now. I'm gonna show you what I do. I start from the back. I get that nice and vertical. And once I put some CA on there, I follow it up with the accelerator. I'm gonna have to hold it just for a little bit until it dries. But once it is dried, it is not going anywhere, pretty much. It's not like the Hysol. The Hysol is, if I want to break, I can, with the CA, I can take it apart. It's going to pull some wood away and stuff probably. But with the Hysol, the only way I'm going to get the part off of the frame with the Hysol is I'm going to have to use heat, and a lot of it like a heat gun. So here we go. Just gonna put a tab in here. It just moved a little bit to the right. No big deal. The back end is not. And you know what? I think I'm clogged up. Yep. Okay, just had to unclog the tip. It was really not that bad. It just, I took some sandpaper to the tip and that worked. Sometimes if you get a needle, it's probably a good idea to have a needle on hand. But a needle and then jam it into the top, that's probably the best idea. But now I got it level. Again, just putting some in here. I'm just trying to set it, that's all. Both sides, right there, just like that. holding it very carefully, putting the lid on. I know this seems kind of crazy. Ugh. There you go. Back to where you belong, buddy. And then Q-tip in the accelerator. Make sure it's nice and wet. And here we go. Well, you know, it's moving around a lot, so let's just double check. Irritating. Come on. Because once you do that accelerator, it just freezes. And here's another note about the accelerator. Something I learned with building RC models is that you don't want to use a lot of it for structural components, because what happens is when you use the accelerator, it fractures. So if you look at it very closely or under a microscope, it's not a clean set. The CA will look like crazed and cracked under you know, a careful eye or a microscope. So there's that, and that's not a good structural type of bond. There it is, nice and centered, perfect. Okay, next is down at this area. So I'm gonna move everything down there. I'm trying to keep these two separate just so, because the fumes, I can smell the fumes right now. Just gotta stay on top of it, be careful. Don't get one. Open with the other. This is a little bit
That's good.
Okay, that does it for this episode. At the beginning of the next episode, I'll have a time lapse of me finishing off all the ribs on the horizontal stabilizer, and that will segue into the next items that we will be working on for the build. For now, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good night.